we are getting to the fascinating section of CloudFormation. And CloudFormation is one of my favorite topics in AWS. It is something I could talk about for hours and hours, but I'll try to make it short for you and for this exam. So infrastructure as code, what is it? Well, currently we've been doing a hell lot of manual work. We've been doing manual work, we've automated it a little bit with Elastic Beanstalk. We set up our pipelines to be able to automate our CI/CD using, code build, etc., and code pipeline. But all this manual work that we've been is kind of tough to reproduce, right? If we want to reproduce it in another region, here we go again. We click, 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 click everywhere, and that's a bit boring. If you wanted to do it in another AWS account, that would be even more painful. Or even if someone went ahead in my company and deleted everything, for me to recreate all in my region, that would be a nightmare. So what we like to have really is our infrastructure to be code. And so that's a new concept. And this is quite a new phenomenon, a new trend in the IT world called infrastructure as code. And so that means that this code that we're going to write, we'll be able to deploy it, and it will in turn create, update, and delete our infrastructure. This is where CloudFormation comes in. CloudFormation is going to be a declarative way of outlining your AWS infrastructure for any kind of resources, and most of them are supported. For example, let's take like a high level, pseudo CloudFormation template, and we say, I want a security group, and I want 2 EC2 machines using this group. I want 2 Elastic IPs for these machines, and I want an S3 bucket. And by the way, I want a load balancer that is connected to these machines. So we say in a declarative way, okay, this is declarative, what we want CloudFormation to do, and then CloudFormation creates all these things for us in the right order with the exact configuration that we specify. And so that's kind of nice. So benefits of CloudFormation, but I guess you already got a good idea of them, is that number one, we get our infrastructure as code. So no resources will be manually created, which is excellent for control. All the code can be version controlled, for example, using Git, so we can version control our CloudFormation, which is nice. And all the changes to the infrastructure will be reviewed through code review, which is also very nice. In terms of cost, CloudFormation itself is free, but each stack that you create has an identifier, and so you can easily track the cost of a stack, and you can estimate the cost of your resources using the CloudFormation template itself. So if you want to have a saving strategy using CloudFormation, right, in your development environment or your small AWS account, you could automate the deletion of all the templates at 5 p.m. and then recreate them at 8 a.m. safely. And so because your infrastructure is code, everything will come back up and you save a lot of money. Other benefits of CloudFormation is going to be productivity. So you're able to destroy and recreate your infrastructure on the fly as many times as you want. You can automate the generation of diagrams for your templates, which is quite nice if you create presentations. And it's declarative programming, so you don't need to figure out what goes before what. It's in terms of ordering or orchestration, CloudFormation tracks and does that for you. There's a true separation of concern as well, so you can have as many tags as you want for many apps and many layers, and so it's quite common to have a VPC CloudFormation stack that creates all the networks and the subnets. There is an application stack, so for each application you'll deploy, there's going to be an application CloudFormation stack, and so that's something we actually saw already with Elastic Beanstalk. Each time we created an environment in Elastic Beanstalk, it went ahead and created a CloudFormation templates behind the scenes. And so the idea is that we want to reuse as much work out there, so we're not going to reinvent the wheel. There's a lot of CloudFormation templates on the web that we can already leverage. And we can also leverage documentation, which is huge, by the way, and hard to navigate sometimes. But on the documentation, there's everything you will ever know. So CloudFormation, how do they work? Well, we will upload the templates in Amazon S3 behind the scenes, and CloudFormation pulls them from S3. And so when we want to update a template, we actually can't edit a previous template. Like we'll see it in the next lecture anyway, but what we have to do is to re-upload a new version of the template to AWS, and then CloudFormation will do the difference and figure out what it needs to do to update from version 1 to version 2. Stacks will be identified by a name, and the names can be very long. And if you delete a stack, every single artifact, a thing that was created through the CloudFormation stack will be deleted with it. So it's really nice because you can delete all these resources that have been created with one click. And so you're sure that you're not leaving anything behind. Now to deploy CloudFormation templates, there's a manual way in which we edit templates into CloudFormation Designer and using the console to input parameters, and then the automated way, which is to edit templates in a YAML file using a text editor, and then you use the Amazon CLI or command line interface to deploy the templates. It's the recommended way when you want to have some automation out of your flow, but you're free to choose either manual or automated. I think they're both fine. In terms of the building blocks, you're going to learn about those in this section quite a lot, but there's the template components, and so we'll get the resources. And so the resources are basically the AWS resources that we'll declare in the template, and that has to be a mandatory section. Okay, your CloudFormation template cannot work if you don't specify resources. So resources can be EC2 machines, Elastic IP, security groups, load balancers, name it, everything you can think of really. And parameters, so these are dynamic inputs that you can ask for your templates, so users will just reference those. Mappings, which are static inputs for your templates, static variables. Outputs, which is basically saying, okay, out of our template, we can export some stuff and other templates can reference it. Conditionals, which are a list of conditions, so if statements basically to control what gets created. And metadata. Overall, we'll see a deep dive into all of those, so don't worry too much. You'll get to understand them in their own time. And for templates, you get helpers, and so you can use references, so you can basically link your stuff within your template, and you can use functions to transform data within your templates. So high level overview again, but I just wanted to give you this 101. Now, this is an introduction to CloudFormation. To me, it takes over 3 hours to properly learn and master CloudFormation, and I do teach it somewhere else. So this section is really meant for you to get a good idea of how it works, but not drill too deep into it because it's not needed for the exam. So we'll be slightly less hands-on than in other sections, but still hands-on enough so you get a good idea of how things work. We'll learn everything anyway to answer questions for the exam, so do not worry about this. And the exam does not require you to actually write CloudFormation. It mostly will ask you about what feature should you use in CloudFormation to perform X, Y, Z, and so you should be fine. So the exam though expects you to understand how to read CloudFormation, and we're going to read a lot of CloudFormation in this course. So that was a short introduction to CloudFormation. In the next lecture, we'll go ahead with a small example to get an idea of how it actually works. So see you in the next lecture.